Can the 49ers get over the hump in 2024? What is the hump? And we'll tell you why the 49ers will or will not clear that thing. Aiyuk, his agent, track record, so much more coming up on today's mailbag edition of Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We love our everydayers, and we especially love it when you hit that subscribe button. It helps us tremendously on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. Croc, we had planned to have another question go first, but a question arose within your family and within some folks in your household as we were getting ready, pre-production for this podcast. And the idea of the hump. And as many loyal listeners know, they know that, Croc, you being a 49ers fan, your brother being a Cowboys fan, weird little dichotomy there in the Crocker the Crocker household. I'm a San Francisco Giants fan. My wife is a Dodgers fan. It's always been just a little bit weird. And so, that can create some trash talk and some other things, most of it all for fun. Your best friend Donald also is a Steelers fan. And so, these are storied franchises. So you have a lot to argue about when you do get into it. One of the topics, Croc, that came up was somebody who was a Cowboys fan had the audacity to say that the 49ers couldn't get over the hump. And I immediately thought, well, what hump are we talking about as it pertains to the 49ers versus the Cowboys? Because they can't get over the hump either. Much lower hump that the Cowboys are having trouble right now, having some trouble clearing versus what the 49ers are trying to do, which is win a Super Bowl. The Cowboys are just trying to win a stinking playoff game, and especially against those San Francisco 49ers. So we'll answer the question about if the 49ers can get over the hump, but we've got to specify exactly what hump we're trying to clear here.
I think that's the biggest thing, right? I think there's actually a lot of respect towards the San Francisco 49ers and the way that they're viewed. When something comes out about Kyle Shanahan or 49ers players, a lot of the responses, especially from other fan bases, is, oh, they choke. Oh, they can't win the big one. Well, the big one for the 49ers is drastically different than the big one for other teams around the NFL. The 49ers standards when they're entering the season, whether it's the standards set by Vegas, right? 49ers a lot of times have the highest or close to the highest odds to win the Super Bowl. A lot of teams can't say that. And that's been happening for the last few years now for the San Francisco 49ers, especially with the way the team is constructed and how they've played in these seasons. So I think it's actually a lot of respect that my bro, my best friend's little brother, Anthony Salter, and I'm going to say his whole name, but Ant said the 49ers can't get over the hump. And I think that's a great question that you asked, Peacock. Ant, what hump are you talking about? You're a Cowboy fan. What are we doing here? But that just shows you the one level of respect I think other fan bases have for 49ers, and two, just the standard that the 49ers have set year in and year out.
Why, Croc, is there so many Cowboys fans hanging around Stockton, California is my first question.
I think when people talk about the Dallas Cowboys being America's team, I get to feel that. I see a lot of Cowboy fans around me all the time, whether it's my big brother, whether it's my uncle, who myself and my brother wanted to be like. There's some of my brother's friends. I mean, they're decked out in Dallas Cowboy stuff. They go to all the 49er Cowboy games when they're in town here. One of my guys, shout out to Devin Mays, we're arguing pretty much every day, every year. We're arguing in our group chat. He's a Dallas Cowboy fan. So for whatever reason, and I think that speaks volumes to the title that they're giving America's team, those Dallas Cowboy fans, they're hella annoying, but they definitely are everywhere.
The hump, Croc, that the 49ers are trying to clear, as high as any teams in the NFL, they're trying to win the Super Bowl, right? And they've been 1-2 games away so many times over the last handful of seasons. The overriding question is, can they get over that hump in 2024? And is there a certain part of the hump, like when you're talking about this mountaintop that the 49ers are trying to get over, is there one steep cliff that they can't quite get up? Is there one is there one really tight grouping of trees that they need to mow down to get through this? Is there just a beast on the top of this mountain that is in the way, and it's just that one beast that they have to slay? What really is the hump for the 49ers that they're trying to get past here? Or is it maybe just all internal for this team?
I remember going back to 2017 and watching the 49ers. And at one point, you guys all remember, they lost like 9 straight games. And I remember watching those games thinking, I am watching a bad football team in the sense of especially their record and the outcome of the games. But it always felt like, man, they were like 2 players away. I'm like, I don't know what those 2 players were, but they were 2 players away from being able to win a lot of games. At one point, I think they were the first team in NFL history to lose 5 straight games by 3 or less points, right? Like they were knocking on the door. And then I thought it was a couple players away. It actually ended up being Jimmy Garoppolo away. Jimmy Garoppolo took over. They ended up winning every game for the rest of the season that he actually started. And when I look at the 49ers now, they aren't players away. They are a play away. So as we talk about the hump, there are teams that are either players away, maybe a coach away, maybe a quarterback away. That is not the case for the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are we have to make this play in this moment. And they are that play away from actually being Super Bowl winners. I mean, 2 times in the last, I don't know how many years.
I mean, it's a great point. You asked me the question. We had a conversation about, who the best quarterback is in the NFC West. Is it Stafford? Is it Brock Purdy? And you asked me the question, okay, do the 49ers win the Super Bowl if you swapped out Stafford for Brock Purdy? And my answer was, I wouldn't want to swap them out because there's a chance that Stafford plays worse. Stafford does throw some interceptions, right? There's a chance he throws the ball to the other team. He's been known to do that. The 49ers couldn't take advantage when he did that to them when the Rams went and won the Super Bowl not too long ago. But they were 1 play away, and that was my answer was you don't need to swap quarterbacks. You just need to not have the one fumble, the one muff punt, a penalty here or there. Make one more play on offense. Make one more play on defense, perhaps. Make one block. They were literally 1 play away, and losing with a minute left in overtime in the Super Bowl is as close to as you can get to winning a Super Bowl and not winning it. They couldn't be more literally 1 play away from getting over the hump last year.
There are a lot of people that think that the San Francisco 49ers are a coach away. And I wouldn't go that far. Again, I talked about a lot of times anything that's posted about San Francisco 49ers, anything positive on social media that's posted about Kyle Shanahan, and a lot of comments under there, calling him a choke artist. And we've seen how things have played out. I do believe that he is the right guy for the job, but I feel like he's been more so one decision away from winning. And can that change? I think so. I think as you go through these different experiences, we've seen him try different things, even some things that may be out of his character, right? Drafting a guy like Trey Lance. We know that's not quite what he wants, but he sees certain things and he's like, is that the one thing that'll really help me? Okay, that didn't quite help me, or didn't play out the way I ideally would like. Okay, let's pivot from there. So we've seen him kind of pivot, but it seems like in the biggest of the game. And he did 1 drive. Now, here's the thing. The mindset in the 4th quarter when Kyle Shanahan went for it on 4th and whatever, and I think it ended up resulting in a touchdown. You got to be that guy all the time. And it's a gift and a curse to some extent, right? We watched the Detroit Lions. Like, that's who they were. They were that team that in all moments, they're going to beat them. They're going to be aggressive. And it kind of bit them in the behind against the 49ers when they failed multiple times on 4th and short. And really, it was just poor execution, drop pass. We saw 2 drop passes in that scenario. If they don't drop those balls, we might be having even a different conversation about Dan Campbell and how the season played out for the Detroit Lions. But for the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, I think it is that one decision. And late in the game, he did it. He went for it. And I'm like, be that guy all the time. Because outside of that decision right there, we've seen more passive Kyle Shanahan, coaching to not lose as opposed to coaching to win the games. Going into overtime and saying, we're going to take the ball because we want a 3rd possession, and a 3rd possession we're going to go win. As opposed to saying, hey, let's give them the ball, and then whatever they do on top of that, we're going to score. And if we want this game to end, we're going to go for 2, right? Like just be aggressive from that standpoint. And I think his mindset, he's a little conflicted with himself with how he wants to go about things. But I think if Kyle were to be a little bit more aggressive, I think we'd see a little bit better. I'd say that he raises his ability to win some of these big games. I was on social media, somebody had mentioned something about it to me, and I said, I think if we're probably having a different conversation if he elected to kick in OT as opposed to receive and expect a third possession that he was never, ever going to get because the Chiefs always wanted to go for a 2-point conversion.
Yeah, it's the most obvious and perfect example of the difference between Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid, where Kyle Shanahan's looking at how the game could go, tight game, that third possession, and Andy Reid's like, what third possession? It's an impossibility for it to even get to that because we're going for 2. Never crossed Kyle's mind that he would go for 2 and be that aggressive to go win the game in overtime. Next, Croc, we got questions on DeMeco Ryans and Robert Saleh. Things going a little bit differently for those head coaches. What's the difference there? I have a clear answer for that one. And what about Brandon Aiyuk's agent? What is his track record for getting big second contracts done for his clients? And more from the chat as well. Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. Maybe that's the summit. A little more passion, drive, and patience for the 49ers to get over that summit. Like you can in your vehicle when you utilize eBay Motors that has everything you need to maintain your car and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car into the MVP and bring home that W. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. We go back to the chat here real quick. Croc. This one from Hinder Hind, a frequent listener to the show. Appreciate you jumping in on the live chat as an everydayer. Niners should hire Croc like the Lakers did. What do you think, Croc? You get into coaching, go straight from podcasting to coaching. Seems to work, man. Hey, Steve Kerr won titles going from the media to the sideline to the court side, right? JJ Redick now the head coach of your Lakers, by the way, Croc. What do you think if someone comes calling? And look, I've gotten some job offers on certain things, and a lucrative career as a podcaster is not a bad way to go, Croc. And there's been jobs that I would have jumped at previously in my life that I'm like, nah, you can't afford me anymore. So even if a team came calling, it's like, I'm not doing that 25K area scout thing. I need a cushy chair and an office in the building and in a lucrative contract to pull me away from podcasting, as JJ Redick did. Croc, you open to job offers in the NFL?
You know, I don't think anybody's calling me or my agent, aka my wife, to get me to be the head coach of an NFL team. But you know, everything I think has to be the right situation. And like you said, you know, you talked about podcasting, Locked On. I make good money sitting in this chair. I'll have my office hopefully by next week. But I make good money sitting in a chair talking football, talking about something I love and I'm passionate about to people. And you and I, we get to kind of work around the time. Hey, what works for you? What works? You get to go into some of these other jobs. You make less money, and then you have a lot more on your plate. But that doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me. So it would take a lot, whether it was coaching or other, to get me away from what we comfortably do right now. And the Locked On Network is only growing and only getting bigger each year. So now you have to offer me something with me projecting where Locked On might be in the future, which is more money. So it would be hard to steal me away from Locked On 49ers and my co-host Brian Peacock, who, you know, obviously we've become, you know, really, really tight throughout this dynamic. So not sure you see any kind of coaching I mean, a college team would have to offer me, I don't make this much, but they would have to offer me like $300,000 starting off,
right?
For it to be worth me leaving this situation, being able to, I played 9 holes of golf this morning, right? Being able to do those things, coach, come home, do this. I coached tonight in a scrimmage against another high school team, and then I get to hang out with my wife. When you coach college football or pro sports, a lot of your days just at the facility doing those things. So it might even have to be more than 300,000 to be honest.
There's a quality of life issue as well. Yeah. And it's funny you bring up the golf. Croc, a new golfer, and we still have not gotten together on the links and played golf, which we've had plans to do and we're going to do very soon. Can't wait to do that. That'll be a lot of fun. But you brought up something about your agent, Croc. And I don't know how many lucrative second contracts she's landed. That's one of the questions we're going to talk about here about Brandon Aiyuk and his agent. But you brought up something about Madden, because we're talking about how when you and Wink are going to ever play that Madden matchup that we've been talking about for years. And you're like, well, first I got to get a copy of the new Madden. But you're talking about how your agent brought up a great point, being the good agent that she is, that you picked up this new hobby of golf. I don't know if you got time for playing Madden and video games now, if you're going to be out there on the golf course all the time. My
agent, aka my wife, said, you can get the new college football game, because that's what it is. I want the new college game. You can get the new college game, but you got to stop playing golf. Or if you want to keep playing golf, then stay away from that college football game. So she set a hard line, drew that line in the sand. I can't cross it. I think I'm sticking to golf. Won't be playing college football at least anytime soon.
Viatal in the chat says, at what point would Croc and Peacock be too big to take autographs from fans? It is funny when people were at training camp or you see folks and they ask for your autograph, and I'll sign anything. I just think it's insane that someone would ask me for my autograph. He goes on to ask, do you remember your first autograph? Do you remember your first autograph, Croc?
Yeah, it was probably part of my rookie in the Arena Football League, but it was kind of mandated. Like after, and it was kind of like this in the NFL too. But after games in the Arena League, they put these chairs out, then you had to sign the autographs from all the fans. So you'd sit there for like 20 minutes or so, sign autographs. That was a great time, being able to interact. And then in the NFL, especially at training camp practices, each position group after practice, depending on which group it was for the day, had to go and sign autographs to all the fans. So I got some cool pictures floating around, like maybe on Instagram, on my Instagram, where it shows me signing autographs, and you just see like hundreds of Jets fans. So that was pretty cool.
That's phenomenal. I signed a few autographs back in the day when I was playing rock and roll music, and it blew me away then, just like it blows me away now if someone recognizes us and asks for an autograph. But it's always fantastic. I prefer, to be honest with you, I prefer the selfie. I prefer the picture as a if I was an autograph seeker, which I have never really been much of one, or an autograph giver. I think the interaction is the big part, right? You can sign something, and it's like you don't even see someone's face or remember. It's like,
right.
What does that mean that someone wrote their name on a piece of paper? How about the selfie? How about the handshake and the genuine interaction?
Well, I get recognized so much being out. My brother Donald, my best friend, he sleep right here next to me on the couch, but he talks about it all the time. He's kind of numb to it now, but I know for a while he's like, why do people want to take pictures with you? Like, I don't understand. And it happens everywhere now. I get noticed. My wife and I, and this is how random it is, we're about to move into our home. So we need to get some boxes. So my wife must have went on something. Someone was selling boxes, like $20 for a bunch of moving boxes. We show up at the house. I get out the car. Dude has this exact same 49er hat that I have on now if you're watching on YouTube. And I get out the car and say, hey, nice hat. He said, hey, nice hat to you too, Croc. I watch your show. You guys show every day. So, I mean, it's pretty cool, I would say. But really, for me, it's more so that people they're showing us love, that they value just the conversation that you and I have on this platform.
Like, is that Eric Crocker, the golfer?
Nobody knows me as Eric Crocker, football player. And of course they don't. But they do know me as Eric Crocker, Locked On 49ers co-host.
When I introduce you, Croc, I say Eric Crocker, Arena Bowl champion.
Arena Bowl
champion. You got the ring, and I want to give you your due because you earned that ring, like the 49ers are trying to do right now.
They got to get over the hump.
Shock Max the first says never leave, guys. No, we're not leaving. Wait, I don't think anybody can afford us.
I don't think they can.
Next, let's talk Brandon Aiyuk, his agent, the track record for getting deals done, and DeMeco Ryans versus Robert Saleh in their new gigs post San Francisco 49ers, and whatever comes up in the chat between now and then. Next.
Hey, Peacock, before we get into the next topic, Big Dez in the chat says league has caught up to Kyle's scheme. Too many teams running it. Do you think that's an issue right now? Do you think that Kyle Shanahan maybe needs to find a different way to be a little bit more innovative or kind of zig when everybody else is zagging and taking a lot of the philosophies from his scheme? We're seeing a lot of his coaches being poached off the 49ers coaching staff or guys that have come up under either his tree, McVay, with just a similar mindset. So does Kyle need to find a new way to be innovative? Because, hey, these defenses now, they're seeing it. They understand how to attack it. It reminds me a lot of the Seattle 3 scheme. When Seattle was running it, they were kicking butts, taking aim. Nobody knew what is this? What are they doing? Their coaches started being all over the place. We're starting to see a lot more single high. All of a sudden, the offensive coordinators knew how to combat it more. Is that what's going on with Kyle Shanahan's offense?
Yeah, and it's bound to happen, and he's just going to have to keep changing. And if he doesn't, everyone around the league is trying as hard as they can to stop it. And we've already seen some things that they've done that have started to be a little bit different. Like when they started doing less wide zone, getting bigger offensive linemen, trying to do more gap scheme stuff to try to, counter off of knowing that teams are scheming a way to stop that wide zone and set the edge on them. And we've seen what teams are doing against that defensive scheme, the Kyle Shanahan defense, as we've been calling it recently. With that, with the pin and pull and like some of the things that offenses are doing to the 49ers defense, and they've got to counter that. So it's never ending in the NFL. Kyle Shanahan still is consistently the most successful in his tree on offense as a coordinator. So while he does need to continue to change, I don't think the league has caught up with him, but I think that just because you have a sound scheme now doesn't mean you're going to have a sound scheme tomorrow. So it's always got to change. And when we talk about his drop back passing game too, I think that's one of the untapped parts of his game. But part of what makes Kyle Shanahan's offense so good is that, and when the 49ers are really rolling, they have an opportunity to do anything with any personnel that's on the field. And it's a little bit more difficult when you start to get behind. Now, can you lean on the drop back passing games? That's not the strength of your team. The strength of your team is running the ball, staying ahead of the sticks, staying ahead of the scoreboard, and being able to utilize everything when you can't anymore. That's one of the weaknesses of Kyle Shanahan's offense. And is Brock Purdy good enough? And if he's a $60 million quarterback, he better be good enough to lean into it and let your quarterback win games. So that's kind of the next step for me. It's not how Kyle Shanahan has wanted to run things, but he has done things before that are more like that, like with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones in Atlanta. So maybe that's the next version of the Kyle Shanahan offense. We'll see.
I think this is the other part to it right here. Spike Danger in the chat says 49ers had the number one offense last year, and we added new explosive players. Come on, guys. And that's part of it too. And again, you got the number one, offense. It didn't look like the number one offense in the Super Bowl. So I think now that the question is, with the Kansas City Chiefs, that was a down year for the Chiefs offense. Like they weren't expected to be this juggernaut offensively. So their 19 points in regulation wasn't at all surprising. 49ers, the team now scoring like 30 points per game, getting stifled a little bit and not having a changeup. That was a little bit more surprising. So maybe they do have the number one offense in the league. Do they have to figure out how to have a changeup to where it's something that teams aren't quite expecting? Shout out to my guy, Lavelle Hawkins. He's head coach pretty much at Edison, where I coach. He's thinking of a changeup for week one. We got a big game. I can't say too much. I don't know who out in Sacramento will listen to this podcast, so I can't say exactly what Lavelle had brought up. But, we play Grant Pacers week one. Got a big time battle between two guys that used to go to Cal. One guy coaching Edison, one guy coaching at Grant. And we're trying to figure out, all right, should we change this up? Throw this little wrinkle in here, something they won't be expecting. And we have an offense that's able to put up a lot of points and be very high powered. But even then, there's always an opportunity for a change up and a wrinkle to kind of shake things up just a little bit.
I got some ideas. I can't wait to talk about that off the air. We had a question on Twitter about Brandon Aiyuk and his agent, and if Brandon Ayuk's agent has done a bunch of contracts. What his agent? This is from Floyd the Barber on Twitter. What is Brandon Ayuk's agent's track record with negotiating second contracts? And so I looked up, and Ryan Williams is Brandon Ayuk's agent. Athletes First is the agency, and according to Athletes First, most of the agents there have about a 12-to-1 agent to player representation ratio. And according to fanspo.com, these are the players that Ryan Williams represents. And so there is about 14 names on here. I don't know how many of them are all still in the league. Some of the names it looks like are not currently signed. So, I'd say that's pretty accurate. 10 or 12 current players that Ryan Williams currently represents. And I think it's pretty interesting that there's not many big second contracts on here. In fact, there's only 2 players that make more money than Brandon Aiyuk currently already makes, even before this new deal is done, that Ryan Williams represents. And that is veteran Falcons offensive tackle Jake Matthews, and then another guy who's also not done a second contract yet, and that's Lions rookie second-year running back now, Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs has a going by guarantees, has $17 million guaranteed as a 12th overall pick in the draft, and so he'll make more than Brandon Aiyuk per year because Aiyuk was the 25th pick in the draft in 2020. So and then after that, it's Shelby Harris, Eric Wilson, Josh Norman, Josh Rosen, and I don't know if maybe Ryan Williams had done some of these other contracts, like when Josh Norman signed his big contract, was he involved in that? But it doesn't show that information here. Cedric,
you got to remember too, Josh Norman, and we don't know how far back this goes, but he struggled. The Panthers franchise tagged him, and they couldn't come to an agreement. And then they just ended up reneging the franchise tag and were just like, just go away. Yeah, and then I think that's when he went to Washington. So I'm curious to know how far back this relationship goes between him and Josh Norman. But that is something that happened back in around 2015, 2016.
Yeah. So if he was his agent then, it's not a great track record. And in fact, the only player listed here that is currently on a big second contract is Jake Matthews. I think Jake Matthews might even be on his third contract now. He's 32 years old, and he signed a new deal in 2022 that goes through 2027 at about $15.5 million per year there. So $103 million deal there for Jake Matthews. So when Brandon Aiyuk signs his deal, to be by far Ryan Williams' largest current deal, unless there's some old deals that aren't shown here. And this is according to fanspo.com. So I don't know if their information, I've not vetted this information if it's 100% correct. But even before Aiyuk signs his next deal, he's already the third highest contract player that Ryan Williams currently represents. And by the way, Ryan Williams on Twitter a couple times has gone and squashed some of the rumors, like the one was Brandon Aiyuk has officially requested a trade from the 49ers. And Ryan Williams said, you need better sources. And that was the radio guy, I think, on the East Coast, John Frischella. Yeah, was always had all these rumors and none of them ever come true. And another one, a Pittsburgh Steelers aggressively pursuing Brandon Aiyuk trade. Ryan Williams says, yet another report that couldn't be more incorrect. Fictional journalism should really stop. So Ryan Williams squashing a couple trade rumors involving Brandon Aiyuk, that's for sure. Maybe an agent that's willing to play some hardball though too. So not a long track record based on that information of an agent that's got a lot of big second deals done. I have no idea what that means. That doesn't mean anything. That's just what the information I found to answer the question. It doesn't make me more confident or less confident, but it'd probably be better if you saw an agent that had like tons of these deals with a bunch of second-year contracts, wide receivers, be like, okay, he's been through this a bunch of times with this very similar situation. None of those contracts are remotely similar to what Brandon Aiyuk's situation is currently.
Hey, man, like I tell my wife, there's a first time for everything, baby.
That's exactly right. Last question that I wanted to talk about here, and I teased it yesterday, so we got to finish it up here. It was, what's the difference with Brandon or with DeMeco Ryans and Robert Saleh? How come Robert Saleh has struggled? DeMeco Ryans great immediately as head coach of the Houston Texans. And I wanted to address this question because the answer couldn't be more simple, and it's one word: quarterback. That's it. I don't think Robert Saleh is a bad coach. I do think that he's a pretty good coach, and I think for sure DeMeco Ryans is a great coach. If I had to pick one, I'd probably pick DeMeco. But
why?
I don't know. It's just like maybe it was just because that seed was planted in my head by Kyle Shanahan so early on, when it was like, oh man, this guy's going to be a head coach someday, back when he was linebackers coach. And maybe that stuck with me, and just looking at him through that lens, and every time he speaks and you just see his face and you believe when he says something, there's something about it. And I would believe that players pick up on that too. Right. And he has me believing way over here through a TV screen. I bet he's really got players believing when they're in the same room with him. Seems like a smart guy. He was always a smart player. I just have a belief in him, and I don't not believe in Robert Saleh. I think he's a really good coach as well. The Jets just haven't had a quarterback, and immediately the Texans did. But did the Texans and the coaching staff help that young quarterback? Probably, because that's always part of it.
It's definitely a quarterback position. If you look at a lot of those New York Jets teams, they were on the cusp of having some kind of an opportunity. And their quarterbacks, I mean, take away even the injured season with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, there's been some bad quarterback situations. They had to bench Zach. Gosh, can't even think of his name right now.
Zach Wilson.
For Mike White.
Remember how excited? Like, Mike White's a journeyman quarterback. They were making T-shirts that said Mike effing White, and they were so excited because they had at least like that level of quarterback play. They had to climb to get to Mike White level quarterback play, and the team is so excited about it because it's not like. And look, Robert Saleh is a defensive coach. They've had good the defense is not the problem, right? So as far as I'm concerned, he's a great coach. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing. They just haven't had a quarterback. So that's more GM than coach to me.
Definitely. But everybody has their flavors. So, a coach that I've grown to really like, and the way he just runs everything, Dan Campbell, right? Like, is Dan Campbell DeMeco? Is Dan Campbell Robert Saleh? Like, maybe not. But there's something about just his CEO mentality where it's like, hey, whatever you're selling, I'm buying. And I think a lot of his players are the same way. So they're all those guys. He's not an X's and O's guy, but clearly whatever it is that he's talking about, one, has his players bought in, and his coaches too. Ben Johnson, this is a guy that probably was probably number one on everybody's list this past offseason. He stayed with Detroit. Now we'll see how long he stays, but clearly Ben is bought in on whatever it is Detroit has what they're building. And I think it starts with Dan Campbell. So sometimes these coaches just have that something, but also, what else does Dan Campbell have? He's had Jared Goff the whole time, a veteran quarterback. He's had to battle through a lot of adversity. He has Jared Goff leading his team and his offense. You talked about DeMeco. CJ Stroud had one of the better rookie years at the quarterback position, the most important position that we've ever seen. And I think when you have players playing at that type of level, at that position, probably makes your job a lot easier than it is for a guy like Robert Saleh, who just can't get right at that position. And the time you think you got it right, you get the right guy in there, he gets hurt 4 plays into the season.
This is a good point, going back to our last question from Brian, and we'll finish here. He says, is Aiyuk making all these posts because he doesn't trust his agent and his friendship with John Lynch? That was the big thing I meant to mention. I totally forgot about. John Lynch was in Ryan Williams' wedding. Like, they are friends. There's not going to be a lack of communication unless business really got in the way of a friendship here between John Lynch, the GM, and Ryan Williams, the agent. And I know there's Parag and there's other people involved in a negotiation like that, but like there couldn't be a closer relationship between GM and agent for a player than a guy who's been in the other guy's wedding, if that is indeed true. And it's something I heard a while back, and I don't know exactly how close they are or where their friendship began, but it would seem that there should be some communication here to get a deal done. And no, I don't think that's why Aiyuk is making the post, because if he didn't trust his agent, he'd get a new agent.
Who is this guy? Like, why does John Lynch know him so well?
That's a great question. I remember hearing that, and it seemed to check out. I think I saw a photograph of Lynch with him at Ryan Williams. So it was Lynch at Ryan Williams' wedding. I don't know how. Maybe Williams is an ex-player. A lot of agents are ex-players. Maybe he represents him. I have no idea. But let us know in the chat in the last few seconds here. Let us know on Twitter at BD Peacock, at Crocky209, or you can drop a comment in the YouTube comment section as well. Let us know the background of the relationship between 49ers GM John Lynch and Brandon Aiyuk's agent, Ryan Williams, and how that all came about. And by the way, if you want some more content on the 49ers this weekend, I want to drop a link in the chat here really quick. Myself and Jason Aponte of Niners Nation, podcaster extraordinaire as well, did a long Q&A yesterday on my channel, Overtime with Brian Peacock, OT with BP. Make sure you're subscribed up there on YouTube if you are not yet, for some extra coverage on the 49ers and who knows what else they're going overtime on OT with BP is what that channel is all about. Make sure you're subscribed to Eric Crocker's channel as well. No doubt he's going to be on there a lot more when he gets his new studio set up, when he gets this house paid for and bought. And yeah, you getting closer? You ready to move yet? You're already getting boxes. So it sounds like it's rolling, Croc.
Get the keys next Wednesday.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Moving on up, Eric Crocker and the Crocker fam. I love it. Fantastic stuff. Thanks, everybody, for making this your first listen. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Croc and I back after the weekend. Have a great weekend, everybody. Right here, Locked On 49ers.